Hi, good morning everybody, and welcome back to the Fostering Teams podcast. Just to say that this podcast will obviously be on the normal social media outlets, but also we're hoping to have it on YouTube as well. Is that right? Yeah. And this morning we thought we'd invite a really interesting person in to join us on this podcast to talk a lot about the current care situation, where we're up to with what's happening in the service. Obviously lots of children, young people coming in to the social care, and what we're finding is there's a national and more locally shortage of foster carers. But before we get into any of that, in terms of some of that discussion, I'd like to welcome Tia Spencer. Good morning, Tia. Mm-hmm. And Tia's an ex-care leaver, and we thought today, Tia, it'd be interesting to basically chat a little bit of your journey. Yeah. You know, your thoughts and views and opinions. Mm-hmm. And just a general discussion, and then maybe moving forward, looking at what we believe the skills foster carers require. Yeah. Okay. So without further ado, my first question to you would be, when you was in the care system, what did you look for in your caregivers? What was important to you?
To feel welcomed, safe, to be around people that I trust. Yeah. But I often found when I first went into care, I was fostered by multiple carers. Right. And they just, maybe because of my behaviour at the time, they couldn't work with me, or they chose not to. So I often found that I was unwanted, not cared for, I felt unsafe, not a part of the family, you know. Okay. So looking for foster carers, they need to have empathy and understanding and put themselves in the child's shoes, understanding that they've moved possibly multiple times and have been failed before. Yeah. So they're looking for trust. Yeah.
So how old was you when you came to the care system?
I was 6.
You were 6? Yeah. And did you go straight into foster care?
I did. Yeah. And then I went to live with my sister's mum. And then she sadly passed away of breast cancer. Oh, okay. So then I was put back into the system. Right. Yeah.
And throughout that, obviously quite clearly, how old were you then? 6? So when did your sister's mum pass?
So I was 7.
7, so that's massive, 12 months, so you're suffering, you're caregivers, you've lost a really significant caregiver. Did anybody speak to you about at 7 years of age, anybody say, look, the choices are this, how do you feel, this is what our plan is, potentially?
No conversations. It was, pack your bags, you go in. There was no meeting the foster carers, it was, you're staying here.
Okay. Yeah. Now, really important question from me, from my own personal perspective. Were you placed with carers from a similar background to you in terms of culture and identity, and equality, diversity?
I was moved, so I lived in Longsight, multicultural area. Okay. And then I was placed in Kersley, Bolton. Right. And at that time, there wasn't a BAME community there. It was white middle class and white working class.
Right, okay.
So I was taken from my family and friends being black, Asian, Chinese, all of that. Yeah.
Well, you probably felt respectfully, probably felt safe, got some identity, I'm good with this.
Yeah, I never experienced any racism until I moved there.
Right, okay.
That was the first time I've heard the N-word, go back to your own country. Right, yeah. And I didn't know what it meant.
Oh, yeah. So did you go to the local schools there as well? So you not only moved from, so they shifted everything. So you're picked up and taken out of your safe place, safe zone where you felt your needs were being met. To there you go. Yeah. Okay. And at that time, I mean, again, just to say, how many years ago is that to you?
Oh gosh. 15,
16, so something like that. From memory, you can't really, the sense I'm getting, you can't, and I think the thing about social care, from my perspective, what I'll add to that is, and I've not worked in local authority for quite a while, I've been with independent fostering agencies, so I understand how it works. Maybe because of your age, and I may have thought, well, what do we say? Or, this is the only placement we've got, so we better take it. Yeah. I think it's a difficult concept that for a young child to understand.
Yeah, but I feel like communication is everything. Perfect. If they just sat down and said, Mum and Dad's sick right now, there's no one in your family that can look after you, so we're going to move you here. There was none of that. I just remember being on the motorway with my little sister driving what felt hours, and I had no idea who was driving the car, and then just place. I was like, what is going on?
So at that time, did you have a social worker, an assigned social worker? And so were they part of that movement and process? Yeah. And so when you moved, because sometimes one of the big things for children and young people at the moment that we constantly hear, and what you're saying is not uncommon to me, because some of the feedback we get when we're doing what we call our foster care reviews is, I don't actually know who my social worker is. Their social worker, not the fostering teams, foster carers, supervising social worker, the actual child or young person social worker. I think a person came, I think it was a duty worker, you know, them sorts of things. Did you know your social worker, or was there just another name, or did you have any continuity of care, as I would call that?
So I was so young. So I met him maybe once. But then after that, I had multiple, I don't know how many social workers I had from our whole experience, I don't know. So
that obviously, for me, trying to walk in your shoes, which is an impossibility, but probably quite frightening.
100%.
You know, frightening. Because I was the example I give, and being a parent, and it's you know, you're a parent as well, it's almost like saying, here's my child to this, and there you go, and you're going there now, and I'll see you later. Essentially. And I know we could have a discussion around that, because it's not quite as straightforward as that, I accept that. But it's about one word you talk a lot about there that I'm passionate in, and belief, actually. Communication is sometimes where things can go wrong quite quickly.
Definitely.
You know, and in terms of, you've talked there a little bit about what foster carers possibly you need for foster carers, because the other side of this is as well, if a foster carer is tasked with meeting that's fine, as long as they've got skills and ability to do that. You know, and if they're willing to open up their mind and think, right, okay, this is actually, A, it's not my child, B, I have to really sort of maybe do some research or whatever that is, that's fine. So we've got to try and give them the skills and abilities, their understanding of culture, of the baby, you know, all them things you've talked about. How long were you in that system, in the foster care? How long were you in that, you know, them foster carers, particular ones, can you remember? 16, 17 months. It broke down. It broke down. And then you just moved from different foster carers? Different
foster carers. I was on respite for a year. And then I moved back to Old Trafford, back to Manchester, and then I had Jamaican foster carers.
All right. So, and then eventually, where did you, so from, I think you said from the age of 11, were you in residential care? And that was till the age of 16? And what was your experience like there? So from, I mean, in terms of, you've got probably a good opinion on the idea of family, the notion of family, foster care, family, being part of the, or not in some cases. We know that's not always the case with foster care, but more often than not it is. That's what we want in our foster care services. I'm proud to say our services are all designed around that family, support, intensive support, clinical support. Thanks. So intensive support around that, you know, because obviously placement breakdowns are they're not a nice situation, and I mean for everybody. Obviously for the child, young person, sibling group, parent and child or age group, they're not nice, and foster carers, because, you know, we've got to find a way of trying to work through some of the difficulties. You know, so you eventually was in residential, and through that process, did you have, I don't know if better is the right word, but more consistent support in residential?
Completely. Because fostering didn't work for me, because I already had a family and I was still connected with them. So I felt like I was intruding on people's families. So when I moved to residential, I could build my own individual relationships with the staff. So it just felt better, because it was a care home. It's not someone's home. It's a business or a running household where you have your office and you have this, you know. So I have my own bedroom. I can decorate.
So you the clarity of boundaries. Now, because I'm a lot older than you, it pains me to say that, but I clearly am. I've worked in residential, and actually what you're saying is that's what some children and young people have said. Look, fostering didn't work for them, but they felt safe because we had a strong staff team, so they knew the staff who were on, they knew the expectation, you know, the bedroom, the independence, you know, going to school, who's picking you up. For some children and young people, residential absolutely does work. And I think that's fair for me to say, but for some it doesn't. You know, they need the intensiveness of the one-on-one. You know, change for anyone, certainly children and young people within that care system is huge. And the problem with residential sometimes is, your experience is quite positive, which is really good. You've had regular staffing. Residential sometimes struggle to have the normal staffing. There's always somebody different. There's bank workers on. You know, they can't form a relationship. It's a difficulty. Who's on? Will I get my pocket money? You know, them things. If I ask for something to eat now, will they say I can have it or not? You know, in a normal family fostering environment, you would just go to the fridge and whatever, because that's what you do. You know, so you spent 5 years there. So did you do all your schooling? Did you do your GCSEs and all them things? The education.
I did, but sadly, before my GCSEs, my dad passed away, and then 11 months later, I had a miscarriage. So I did do them. I didn't really pass, but I've got them there.
Yes. Good. So you were going through quite traumatic experiences. So were your emotional needs being met there so you felt safe there, you felt okay, because that's the other thing for me, what's never lost on me. We talk a lot, and we know, don't we, at the moment, what's huge is anxiety and mental health. It's huge. You know, and especially for some services that are post-pandemic now, what I believe we're seeing is the fallout now of the post-pandemic, because services are actually getting back to normal. People are feeling and it's out there now. You know, some of the discussions we have constantly within the team is about some of what support do our foster carers require alongside. So we're fortunate. We work closely with clinical, and when I talk about support, it's about the training as well. You know, and I think, I don't know if you'd agree with that, but you know, we're asking foster carers, tasking them with a really difficult task, if you like. So we're duty bound to try and give them the best services.
Definitely.